The first episode of The Penguin came out, a show starring Colin Farrell, where he's playing the Penguin from Batman. And this is the same universe as The Batman with Robert Pattinson. I think it's a show that pretty much no one asked for, but the first episode was surprisingly good, and it seems like it's going to be more of like a gangster show than kind of a comic book villain type show. And I'll just go ahead and say right up front, I'm not a comic book reader, so I'm pretty much just basing it off the cartoons that I watched as a kid and the Batman movies that have come out. As an aside, The Batman was one of the first videos I did on my channel. I think I did a pretty different format back then. That was a long time ago, it feels like. Anyway, yeah, the show is not super action-packed, but the dialogue is really good. The characters are really interesting. And the first episode is about an hour, and they do a really good job of just establishing who everyone is and kind of what the world is like and what they're dealing with after the events of the Batman movie. And there's definitely some stuff I'm curious to see where it goes. Obviously, there's no way to know if it'll be a good show or not, but it's at least off to a good start. There'll be spoilers from here on out. We start off with Alberto Falcone. He's the next one who's supposed to take over the crime family. And the Penguin was actually trying to rob him and got caught, but he lies and kind of weasels his way out of it. So they're drinking and talking, and the Penguin is kind of opening up about sort of what he wants, but he doesn't do it intentionally. And then Alberto starts making fun of him, and Oswald just whips out a pistol and fucking shoots him. And that's kind of how the show starts, is your opening 10 minutes. It's a pretty interesting conversation. You're getting the lore for the story, a little bit about their characters, and you can see how impulsive he is right away. Because a few seconds after he does it, he goes, oh, fuck. So he's trying to get rid of the body, and he runs into 3 kids trying to steal his rims off his car, and he just whips his pistol out and starts shooting at them. And then he's pissed off because he accidentally shoots his own car. And this one kid, Victor, doesn't get away fast enough, so he takes him in, and he's like, you're with me now. And I don't know how they did Colin Farrell's makeup, but his makeup is awesome in this. Like, even knowing that it's him, I still can't see it. So props to them. And obviously, he's got like the little hobble when he walks because his foot's all messed up, and he's just generally deformed. But here we go. He gets Victor Aguilar to join him. So now he's kind of starting his own little posse, is what it seems like. There's a pretty funny line of dialogue he has too. And the dialogue isn't necessarily what makes it funny as much as his delivery. Because he tells Victor, he's like, you disrespected me, so I own you now. You're with me. He's like, you understand that? And the kid's like, yeah. And he's like, if you try to run or anything, I'll, murder you and your whole family and shit. And just says it super casually. Colin Farrell's really good in this. He must just enjoy this role. I generally like him as an actor, but he seems to be having a lot of fun with this one so far. So he goes over to a chick's place, gives her a little bit of money, and says that he needs an alibi. I'm guessing it's a hooker pimp type situation with these two, or maybe he's a regular. It's not quite clear, but she agrees. So now he's working on his excuse and his proof as to how he wasn't the one with Alberto when he got shot. And he also stole a meeting appointment off of Alberto's calendar that said he was scheduled for a pickup. So it's nice to see that he's just taking logical steps to try to get out of this impulsive act that he did, where he murdered someone with quite a bit of power. And I like how it shows just kind of how cold and calculating he is, that he's just going step by step, no problem dealing with a dead body. He's like, oh, I'm hungry, let's go get some food. And he has kind of like a dad joke here, but it cracked me up because it felt like something I would say, where he goes, I asked for extra pickles and they gave me 2. So what, the normal amount's 1? Makes no fucking sense to me. And that's how I feel about shit. And I'm sure most people do with the way things are now. Paying $1 for fucking condiments and shit. All stuff that used to be free, or at least come with the meal. Aging myself a bit. They go hide the body in a trunk, and he tries to get the kid to turn around so he can shoot him in the back of the head. And the kid begs for his life, and he's like, look, the smart play is just to kill you. That's just how it is. But eventually the kid's like, I am ambitious and I can help you. And I can't tell if this is for some kind of long play. That's kind of what it seems like. But he lets him live and says, okay, but you need to essentially follow orders and don't step out of line or I'll fucking kill you. So I'm curious to see if there's more to that, or if he's planning on like railroading this kid, or if he really just thought maybe, oh, he seems like myself when I was younger, so he wants like an apprentice. It's not quite clear to me yet. We get a little reference here about the seawall being destroyed, and Penguin calls him a madman. And here you can see his pretty sweet purple car. So we get to see him go to his operation, and he's sending essentially blackmail to a councilman. And we also saw him take the ring off of Alberto when he threw him in the trunk. But the ring is special, so obviously it's going to be relevant later. So we see that his operation is dealing drops, which is just a fictional drug that they use for the show, and that people are now kind of trying to expand their turf while there's a power vacuum. And this is a really interesting scene because they tell him to shut the plant down, and he tries to negotiate it, but he can't. They pretty much tell him to get fucked. There's too many police. And then Sophia Falcone shows up, And he's obviously very surprised. He's like, I thought you were in and she goes, Arkham. And he's like, yeah. They're obviously she's crazy. The actress is named Kristen Milioti. I don't think I've seen her before, but she does a really good job of looking like she's just about to fucking snap all the time. Sophia clearly suspects Oz of something being off between him and the brother. So she's like, let's go eat now. And he kind of doesn't have a choice but to go. And then we get some exposition for her background where she says that they used to call her the Hangman. And apparently she was a complete psycho and well known in Gotham. And the way that she eats is kind of disgusting and looks psychotic, even though it's just a salad. Like she kind of looks like a feral animal or something. But you can tell the whole time that Penguin or Oz is super nervous. And he's not really doing a good job of hiding that he's a little bit on edge around her. I really like this conversation because it makes both characters seem pretty clever. So she's pissed off that Oz is talking about revolutionizing the drug business because apparently her brother left some book with their plans at his club. But quickly he's like, oh, your brother must have been keeping me in the dark too, that he didn't tell anyone about our plans. He didn't even tell me you were in on this thing with us. And then he talks about how much of an addict Al is and how he's always on the drops and drugs and alcohol. So he just goes AWOL randomly. But I like that she put it together that he was trying to steal their brother's plan. And he quickly came up with a rebuttal on the spot. Enough to get out of it for now at least, even if she's still suspicious and crazy. So here's the QR code that you can scan if you hold your phone up to the screen. I didn't do it. Don't really care enough to. But it's a nice little detail. So then he goes to his mom's, and I really enjoy this scene because he gives us a good look into his background and his mentality, as well as sort of the mentality of honor versus dignity culture that this show reflects, even though they never explicitly call it that. So for people who don't know, dignity culture is essentially where you value individuals, you value their dignity. You're more concerned about what you think about yourself than other people. You don't really take matters into your own hands when someone wrongs you. You know, you rely on the law to do it, the police, whoever. So honor culture is very reputation driven and status driven. So if someone humiliates you or disrespects you, you have to do something about it because humiliation and shame are like the worst things that can happen to you that could damage your reputation. You lose your honor. So that's a very vague, quick overview of honor versus dignity culture. And this whole scene, Oz wants to run away because he's scared because he killed someone who's of higher status than him, higher reputation. And his mom figures out that he's trying to run from something and she calls him a pussy and says, no, you're a big, strong man. Like you need to take what you want and take what you deserve, and pushes him to be more aggressive. By being aggressive in this type of culture, he can have more honor, he can get what he wants, more power. For people who live in dignity cultures, typically they look down on this kind of attitude as sort of primitive or unsophisticated, you might say. He goes to see Sal Maroni in jail and tries to offer to essentially turn on the Falcones, give them their drops operations so they can run the streets. And obviously you can see here in the screenshot, Sal says, fuck off. I could never trust you. And the ring that I mentioned earlier that was going to be relevant, he gives it to him right as he's walking out. And he's obviously trying to start a feud between the two. When Oz gets back to his place, Sophia and her group are there. And he's like, oh shit, they're on to me. We get like a nice little car chase here. The CGI leaves a bit to be desired, but it's a TV show and it's not a huge deal. But then he runs into this disaster recovery thing, which is a leftover from the movie, and gets out of his car and goes and tries to hide. A pretty intense little scene here, even though it's not crazy over the top action. And I'm glad because the show in general and kind of the world, I think, from the movie feel pretty grounded. And I know people love the car chase in the movie. I thought that was one of the worst parts. Batman killed like an entire highway of people and then lets the Penguin go and doesn't even get information from him that's relevant. But anyway, a well done little scene here without going too crazy. So he left his door open and got in his trunk to make it look like he ran into the crowd. And then when he gets out of the trunk, one of the guys is onto him. And they had this brutal little fight in the car. I do appreciate how visceral everything feels because it's not overly comic booky or cartoonish or super violent or anything like that. So even though he fought the one guy off, the guy got hit by a bus and he got pretty lucky. It didn't matter. They still caught him. There was too many. And now Sophia's having her way with him and talking about the torture that she received in Arkham. So he's getting some of that treatment. And like I said, I think all the violence feels pretty intense because it's not excessive. It's not super stylized or outlandish. So even this scene where he's just getting punched in the face over and over, when you're watching it, you're like, oof, that hurts. So he's getting tortured and she's telling him to confess, and she got one of the kids that he shot at. And he's like, no, the kid's a liar. And he just keeps saying it until she shoots the kid in the face. So he's pretty ruthless too. But then Vic had a car with a cement block on the gas run into the building outside with the brother's body in the trunk, and it said payback on it with the finger cut off with the Maroni ring on it. His plan did work out. He just got a little bit of torture. That was pretty rough. They used a wire to cut up into his armpit. Nasty. So they're having the mixed slushies at the place that they talked about where they both grew up. And he's just kind of laying out that Vic did a good job. And even if Maroney doesn't want to take credit, they have no choice now. So the whole thing is good for him. The Maroneys and Falcones have to fight and go to war. And he's going to try to capitalize. And he also says that the drops are no longer relevant. And he wants whatever is in the shipment because that's going to be like the next big thing in Gotham. And that's it for the first episode. Really good setup for the rest of the season. It's 8 episodes. It's crazy how much they fit into this single episode. More than the Acolyte fit into the whole fucking season. And it's just good to see smart characters that are trying to outthink each other. They're behaving based on only things they can know. They have pretty clear characters, which obviously is really nice when you can just see how they're going to behave. You know kind of what their morals are, their logic, how far they're willing to go. So a lot of really good stuff in here. Obviously, like I said before, it's 1 episode. Everyone after this could be dog shit, but this seems like it was pretty competently made. So I feel pretty comfortable saying that I think this season will at least be good, even if it doesn't maintain a super high level, which I thought this episode was pretty high level. So I'm going to leave it there for this one. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.